Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We are here in Matchless Gifts again with Srila Prabhupada. We had a beautiful program here, Community Sangha yesterday. Very nice, and can't keep away from this root of the tree of bhakti that has grown all over the world. So very blessed, very fortunate.
All right, we're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 21, Text 40.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 40. By regular service to the Brahmanas and...
So her arms broke, she can't move it to swipe it, so...
And Vaishnavas, one can clear the dirt from his heart and thus enjoy supreme peace and liberation from material attachment. See, I'll read that again. By regular service to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, so for some people when they get a little bit of service, they start whinging. One can clear the dirt from his heart and thus enjoy supreme peace and liberation from material attachment and be satisfied. In this world, there is no fruitive activity superior to serving the Brahmana class, for this can bring pleasure to the demigods, for whom the many sacrifices are recommended. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 65, it is said, Prasade Saiva Dukhanam Hane Ashyopayate. Unless one is self-satisfied, he cannot be free from the miserable conditions of material existence. Therefore, it is essential to render service to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas to achieve the perfection of self-satisfaction. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Tandira Charana Seva Bhakta Sane Vas Janmane Janmane Haya E Abhilas. Birth after birth, I desire to serve the lotus feet of the acharyas and live in a society of devotees. A spiritual atmosphere can be maintained only by living in a society of devotees and by serving the orders of the acharyas. The spiritual master is the best Brahmana. At present, in the age of Kali, it is very difficult to render service to the Brahmana Kula, or the Brahmana class. The difficulty, according to the Varaha Purana, is that demons taking advantage of Kali Yuga have taken birth in Brahmana families. Raksa sa kalim asritya jayante brahma yonishu. That's from the Varaha Purana. Oh, that rhymes, Varaha Purana. In other words, in this age there are many so-called caste Brahmanas and caste Goswamis who, taking advantage of the sastras of the innocence of people in general, claim to be Brahmanas and Vaishnavas by heredity, right.
Hereditary.
It's one of those words,
Hereditary.
You know? Hereditary, right. One will not derive any benefit by rendering service to such false Brahmana kulas. One must therefore take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and his associates, and should also render service to them, for such activity will greatly help the neophyte in attaining full satisfaction. This has been very clearly explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his explanation of the verse Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana.
Vyavasayatmaka.
Yeah, but it's not said in that long
But if you do it slow, Vyavasayatmika. Vyavasayatmika.
Alright, Bhagavad Gita text, chapter 4, text 41. By actually following the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga as recommended by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, one can very quickly come to the transcendental platform of liberation, as explained in this verse, Atyanta Saman. Anyway, the point that stood out for me is where it says a spiritual atmosphere can be maintained by living in a society of devotees and by serving the order of the acharyas. But it's interesting, in my observation, that devotees who live in a society of devotees and those who don't, and from the outside look in, they see one thing, but when you're inside looking out, as it were, it's another thing. It's like sometimes you don't always appreciate you yourself have to be, your consciousness has to be in the correct space to appreciate living in a society of devotees, because you could live with the acharyas, you could live with Prabhupada and Bhakti Thakur and this and that, and you'd be like, you'd still be like a rascal or something, So it's very, we need to be independently fought for, as it were, and what is this and why am I doing it, and tap into that consciousness, That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's like, I just thought of it recently with stuff going on, and it was like, it's up to us how we approach situations or whatever, if we see it as from a higher plane, or do we allow ourselves to be dragged down, That's what, and my conclusion was, the only difference in that and with me and others is the consciousness, the mind, how I'm allowing it to interpret or experience things, It's like road rage. Some people get road rage and they go freakos, and you could be sitting in the same car and you're just like, la la la, it's okay, we can talk about this, or we can look out the window or whatever.
Just talking about road rage because we're going to be driving tomorrow, and I'm driving. Anything else? So there was a thought in there before we got to the road rage part. Yeah, this is living in the society of devotees. Yeah, the statement is, do you see the glass half full or do you see it half empty? It's like you can make that decision to how you see it, or you might always see it half empty, but then you decide, okay, at least when I express it openly, I'm going to say it's half full. But yeah, it's not easy to always see the positive and always be positive. That's encouraged in Shastra, that we should be like the honeybee and always go to the nectar. Not like the fly that goes to the sores and nasty places, or be like the swan and not like the crow. So those kind of things, which is exactly what you were saying. It's a change of consciousness. It's a conscious change of consciousness. We could also say it's a change of consciousness, but it hasn't happened to me yet. But no, it's because you haven't consciously made it happen. So we have to decide, yes, I want to do that. And that's not always easy, because we're driven by the modes of material nature. We're habituated to certain actions, activities. We're conditioned to act a certain way. Like we were just talking about something on the way here, that we see someone doing something that, and from London, we were like, yeah, but you would never do it like that. And it's like, well, is that a Vedic Shastric statement, or is that just the insight or understanding of a rule that's put in place there? Which is the thing for me when I join Krishna consciousness. You think, oh, whenever someone told you a rule, well, that's Vedic. That's been passed down for generation after generation, and everybody follows that. And then you go to other places and people don't follow, either due to ignorance or because someone else has put in place a different rule, which may not necessarily be contradictory, but maybe isn't exactly complementary. And then you think, but who's right, who's wrong? And then it becomes a whole hoopla. Well, what's the Vedic Pramanam? You know, there's all these debates going on at the highest levels of ISKCON about different activities or different ideas, and everyone's got their Shastra quote. Who were we hearing the other day that said you can find a quote from Prabhupada? I think it was Radha Gopinath Prabhu at the Devotee Care Course. He said, you just tell me what you want to prove, and I'll find you a quote from Prabhupada that you can prove it. You know, almost whatever it is. Because according to time, place, and circumstance, things are actually slightly different.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even know if it's true, but if someone says Prabhupada said, or I heard Prabhupada say, you just, oh, okay.
Yeah. Because the movement goes on by love and trust. Okay, so we're going to continue reading. Last paragraph. The particular use of the word anativelam, without delay, is very significant because simply by serving Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, one can get liberation. There is no need to undergo severe penances and austerities. The vivid example of this is Narada Muni himself. In his previous birth, he was simply a maidservant's son, but he got the opportunity to serve exalted Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and thus, in his next life, he not only became liberated, but became famous as the supreme spiritual master of the entire Vaishnava disciplic succession. Lord have mercy. According to the Vedic system, therefore, it is customarily recommended that after performing a ritualistic ceremony, one should feed the Brahmanas. Interesting. So Narada Muni pulled out, like the rabbit out of the hat here, pulled out as the prime example of someone who received immense, enormous, unfathomable benedictions by simply serving the Vaishnavas. Should be noted that he not only served them, but he was very attentively hearing from them, and they picked up on that. And he also took the remnants of their food. So these different things, it's not just that he did some service, but serving the Vaishnavas is good. And then Prabhupada kind of squeezes in there how someone can be engaged in serving the devotees of the Lord by simply at the end of a ceremony you serve prasadam to the Brahmanas. So, or you sponsor the feast for the devotees, or you sponsor prasadam for the Brahmanas. But by doing that one activity, you receive immense benefits, so like that.
Are you going to continue?
I guess we can call it and come back to the next one. Yeah. All right. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Kept it short and sweet for you this morning. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.